So exciting. It's like opening night. One night only. My mind now is complete blank.
Yeah, I'm like, how do people banter? What's bantering?
So on Easter, I was visiting a sick person and I was watching Mass with them. That's what they wanted to do. And this priest clearly had been at this parish for a very, very, very long time. He really ought to have known better because they were streaming their Mass, which I'm sure they've been doing since the pandemic, but he had no idea when he would be giving acolytes instructions. Like, he'd give his piece that, in his beautiful cantor voice and his big booming professorial voice, and then he'd be like, no, James, a little bit more to the left. And of course, me being a person who yells at the television, I kept saying, "Live mic, Father!" As though he could hear me. I also yell when I watch scary movies. I'm always like, no, don't do that.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
That's better than me. I'm the worst. I love and appreciate live theater so much, but it's gotten to the point where it's like a movie in my own home. I'm like, oh, I'm in my house. I can chat. I can pause it. I can talk about things. And I do that when I'm with other people. And they're like, I'm sorry, we're watching a movie. Why are you talking? I'm like, oh, no, we can just pause it. We can just have a cute little conversation. They're like, but we're watching something. And I just forget that like it can keep going now, or that movies keep going, because I've gotten so used to streaming.
Well, we just did a thing. Oh, fantastic. Hello, and welcome to Thank You 5. This is a weekly show that is hosted by Strawdog Theatre Company, where we bring together theater artists from around the globe into a conversation about live theater in a digital world, always with a spirit of gratitude and innovation. My name is Michael Reyes, and I will be your host. I get to be your host. I'm privileged to be your host for this episode. I am a Strawdog Ensemble member, class of 2018. I also have the honor of serving as the president of the board of directors. And as a side note, we are always looking for passionate and talented folks to join the board. So if you are interested, I would love to talk to you about that. Just check out our website for more information. I have been a member of the great Chicago theater community, mostly as an actor or singer for like more years than I can really count at this point. But I'm very happy to be here tonight and to be able to share this evening with the panelists that we've assembled for you today. If you are watching this on YouTube, you can head over to strawdog.org/thankyou5 to join the chat, ask some questions, and more importantly, vote on questions so that we know which ones you want to ask. You want us to ask our panelists. And speaking of panelists, let us please meet tonight's group of dignitaries, starting with Jeremy.
Thanks, Michael. I'm Jeremy Williams. Tonight I am in my hometown of North Little Rock, Arkansas, also the ancestral home of the Cherokee, the Quapaw, and the Caddo and Choctaw peoples. I live most of the time in southern Mexico on the coast of Oaxaca, also part-time in New York. I wear a lot of different hats as a theater maker. I'm a choreographer, director, producer. And before times that meant running around the country doing lots of new productions all over the place. And these days it's been fortunate to expand this question of what is theater and playing with more online and digital stages and collaborating remotely. So that's a little bit about who I am. It's great to be here tonight.
Fantastic. Hi, Kat.
Hi, friends. I'm Kat Evans. I have been a part of the Chicago theater scene since 2006. I act and I sing, and right now I'm writing a lot more. I have my second full-length play having readings coming up at the end of May. We'll talk about that more later. And I'm currently performing at City Lit's 2 world premieres, Waiting for Tina Meyer and Text Me. The former is a play, the latter is a musical. So it's an exciting season to be back on stage while I'm trying to produce a reading of my own work. So glad to be here with you all.
That is amazing. Noah.
Hi, my name is Noah Simon, and I currently reside in the great state of Wisconsin. Specifically, I'm in Green Bay, Wisconsin. I am one of 5 non-Packer fan Green Bay citizens. Although I do want to say that I never actually, I realize now I didn't have a problem with Green Bay, with the Packers, as much as I didn't like Aaron Rodgers. So now that he's gone and they got this great kid, Caleb Love, playing quarterback, and he's actually fun to watch, but I digress. I used to be in Chicago for many, many years, starting in 1993, when I dropped out of college. Yeah. And went through the Second City Conservatory, which is the single greatest thing I've ever done. It really set the stage for who I am today, and I'm sure I will babble on about that later in our conversation. But I'm living here. My wife runs a performing arts center. I was teaching at UW Green Bay and St. Norbert College, and now decided I want to become a mental health professional. So why not? I'm having a midlife crisis, and it involves helping people.
That's amazing. That is amazing. Hi, Heather Grace.
Hello, I'm Heather Grace. This is Ziegfeld. He might make an appearance. I am a Chicagoland baby. I've been here for about 2 years. And otherwise, I came from Portland, Oregon, not Portland, Maine. And I found that sort of every year in Chicago, but also like every year of my theater experience, I have, not on purpose, but sort of on accident, like a different focus. Because similar to Jeremy, I wear many hats. I'm a choreographer, singer, actor, writer, various things. But I just sort of like accidentally do different things, and I've really enjoyed that journey. And it, the same as all my life, has also come to Chicago, which makes sense because it's still my life. I'm not dead yet, so.
Not dead yet.
Thank goodness.
All right. Thank you very much for that. It's so nice to meet all of you all tonight. So let's just dive in. What do we want to talk about? How do we want to answer this question of what is theater in the digital age? Who would like to start us off?
I have a question to start with. Another question for a question.
Totally fine. Totally fine. There are no rules here.
Well, so this is this question right now that I'm working on, like, has come up a lot with a lot of colleagues and whatnot. As I mentioned, I'm here visiting my hometown of North Little Rock, Arkansas, and in Central Arkansas, there's just a huge performing arts culture here. It's a lot going on, and on so many different levels. But right now, there's a big shift in the kind of professional landscape, and some professional theaters closing, and more community and independent artists really coming up, which I see as so exciting and, a testament to why theater will always be important in our cultures. but this question around like what is theater keeps coming up, and because I've gone to see some work, not just here but other places, and there's something that can be missing for me sometimes, and I'm curious, like, what are people like? Not only are you seeing, but what are you missing sometimes when it's not theater? And one of the things I've noticed that must be present for me for something to be theater is transformation, and that we're in a transformational art form, rather that be like a visual transformation or a character transformation or transformation of hearts and minds. Like that seems really essential to the art form of theater. But I know that's just like one element. So I'm just curious, like what other people like feel like is essential, like as we see so many different kind of theatrical happenings going on.
Do you mind if I ask before we open that up to everyone else? What about transformation? When was it where you're just like, oh, it's transformation? That's the key.
It was coming from a not so great theatrical experience. It was not a bad one, but a kind of just a mediocre experience that I saw, and that was the thing that was lacking. It's like, oh, the words were fine, the performances were strong, but the piece itself didn't have transformation built into it. And it didn't ask that the audience transform at all. And I was like, what a missed opportunity. And so it was a piece for young audiences. And I think, especially when we're dealing with young audiences, making theater for young audiences, that transformation is paramount. And without it, like, why is it a play? Why couldn't it be something else? Like, what makes a play or theater? For me, like these transformations of, going into the imaginative world, making those imaginative worlds real, and then growing, expanding, evolving is essential, I think, to a theatrical experience, no matter who's it for, or what kind of theme it is or genre it is.
Awesome.
Can I jump in?
Yeah, do.
Because I'm super excited about everything that's happening right now. These conversations are ubiquitous in the theater community. And half of the conversations that are being held are by people crapping in their pants because they're going to lose their job, because their theater's going to close. And then the other half are the people who are like, ooh, blank slate, clean canvas, let's make something. I'm in that group. And the reason is because I believe that art, not just theater, but art has a higher, more spiritual purpose than we are giving it credit for right now. And that does come down to transformation. That's the word of the day, transformation. For instance, I just want to talk about one guy that super duper influences my art. That's Augusto Boal. And if you haven't heard of Augusto Boal, he's gone now, but he was a Brazilian theater maker. Started his life out as a chemist and was getting his PhD at Columbia University, and sort of kind of spent some time with the folks in the theater department, and it was like a virus. It completely took over his brain. So when he went back to Brazil, he became a professional theater maker and realized over time, I'll make this as short as possible, he realized that he was not making theater for the people he wanted to make theater for, and that was the common person, not the people who could afford the ticket. He wanted to make theater for people who needed to see theater. And there was a military junta in Brazil. He was captured, tortured, and then kicked out of the country. And he and his group toured the countrysides of both Chile and Peru, going into these villages and making theater with the villagers. So the point is that if we do theater right, and we realize that what theater is storytelling fundamentally, and that everything around us is one story or another, then we realize that we can make something that's important to people.
Where did they do the theater when he was traveling through Chile and other countries? Where did they do the theater?
Where did they do the theater?
Where did it happen? Was it in a theatrical space? Was it in a found space?
No, these are the poorest of the poor villages who are barely subsisting. So they made theater outside, they made theater in huts, they made theater wherever it was possible to do it. Because, and I had this argument with a former artistic director of Strawdog Theatre Company, where I maintained that theater is the definition of theater is way more broad than we are defining it as. And for him, theater was in a theater with an audience and lights and sound and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, nope, theater is storytelling, and storytelling can happen with a chair and a clip light, because it doesn't matter if there's a chair and a clip light. The only thing that matters is that there's a story, and it's being told, and it's being shared, and it's transforming people, hopefully.
Mhm.
It's compelling, and people can extrapolate what they're seeing into their own life and world and existence. So, location is irrelevant. Costumes are irrelevant. They're just they're croutons on a salad, and the heart of the salad is the story, and that's what's important. Period. Sorry, that's it.
That's awesome. I
Thank
love
you. I'm
salad.
kind of like evangelical about this, if I'm being
I mean, I also think in theater it's important to have a strong point of view, a strong perspective. So
I do
that's,
not lack from that.
Well,
That's awesome.
I can pick up the
Yeah.
mantle if you need.
Yeah, dude.
Only that I love this theme of transformational, so I'll run with that. I do feel like theater is at its best when we're seeing change and exploring change and considering change. And if that is societal change or change in a family structure or personal change or change in your soul, like all of that is wonderful. And I do feel like that's why we do the thing. And currently, I teach playwriting at IIT. That is the Illinois
Oh,
Institute of Technology, for those of you who
yeah.
are not familiar, or Illinois Tech for short. And I cannot tell you how many people have made the weirdest face when I tell them, yes, I teach playwriting at IIT. And they're like, why? Or, oh, you must hate it. Or what do they want with you? Or, oh, their students must be so confused. And I cannot tell you how proud and happy, thrilled I am to be a humanities professor in a tech school and giving architects and coders and microbio, all these wonderful young and sometimes not so young students a taste of story and how to craft that, and making them go see Chicago theater, which I assure you was the hardest thing I've done all semester, is getting them physically to go to spaces. And shout out to IIT for paying for theater tickets for their students. I really appreciate that they did that. So I took them to the Young Playwrights Festival that was at Chicago Dramatists, or Pegasus Theater, but they had it at Chicago Dramatists. I took them to the Neo-Futurists. I took them to the show I'm in, which is 2 world premieres at City Lit. And I also sent them to Steppenwolf's Home What Howls. And then I made them write papers about their experience. All I wanted them to tell me was, what did you notice and how did it make you feel? And this also, I think, is a challenge for them, because no other professor is really asking them about their experiences or how they feel. And those responses that I'm getting, I feel so good. I'm so happy to live in Chicago where they can have those experiences. And yeah, I'm just gonna go with Noah and say I'm in a good spot. And I know there's a lot of change and there's a lot of rough stuff happening in the world and in the theater industry. But I'm on the side of, let's go. Let's make some stuff.
May I ask how long you've been doing that? How long you've been teaching at
Oh,
IIT?
this is my first semester. I'm
Yeah.
about to finish my first semester. I did get my MFA back. I finished in 2006, and so I've taught in various forms, but this is my real return to academia.
I asked the questions. I'm curious to know the students that you have in 2024, when they come back to you in 2030, it will happen. They will have remembered this experience and it will have informed their lives. Because I don't know if many architects, there's a big architecture school at IIT. So, I think that group gets storytelling, because storytelling through design. but it would be very interesting to hear. And it's so great, like it's throwing it out there, putting it into the world. Sorry, Noah, you were going to say something.
Well, I'm sorry that I was going to interrupt, but I hope they give you tenure, Kat.
I'd have to be
First of all,
full-time first, but thanks. That would be
It's
fun.
if they don't give you full time and then make you tenure after like 2 years, give you tenure, I should say, they're crazy. But then again, I think that our society is just on the verge of understanding how important the arts are to our trades. And yeah, anyway, that's all I want to say. Kat, I would take your class any day.
Thanks, Noah.
Yeah, gosh, have so much to say.
It all.
Okay, great. Well, I'm a dancer, and lately, in 2024, I have returned to swing dancing, specifically Lindy Hop, which is something I've done on and off my entire life. But in 2024, I've been able to dive back into I've been introduced to the Chicago swing community, and I'm learning so much about leading and following and your brain and feeling and how all of it works together. And I sort of studied music therapy a little bit at university, but like dance is one of the only art forms that like help prevent Alzheimer's. And so on that level, like introducing all of these different art forms to all of these students who wouldn't otherwise explore that is so helpful. But also when you were talking about the like personal experience, like, hey, watch this show, tell me how you feel about it, tell me what's your experience, tell me how you're moved. I find that the like transformation of theater has to do with putting yourself into it and connecting with the audience on that personal level, because I devise theater and I've devised my own shows, and they're all very much from my perspective, but I find that the more specific I am with my perspective, the more universal it is. And the more other people can say, oh my gosh, I feel that way too. I didn't realize that other people felt that way. And so all the work that I am inspired to make is about myself. But as I talk about it to people who aren't theater makers, they're like, oh, that's so weird. I've done that too. And so I think it's a transformation and more of a connection, like a connection of ideas, a connection of people, a connection of like something in your soul that you can just feel. Because
I mean, truth is truth, right?
yeah, otherwise what's the point?
It always tickles me when somebody's like, oh, well, they're just acting. I'm like, but like if they're talking about somebody in business, or that has a theater background, or like, oh, they're just acting. I'm like, yes, but acting is truth. It's all true. If you believe them, it's because they're being truthful with you. And it might be an act, but anyway, so that's awesome. So dance has been transformational then for you, and the devising of the work and the talking about yourself and sharing yourself with the world.
Yeah. Yes, I have like always expressed myself through movement. Like I got into theater because I was this 3-year-old that my mother had no idea what to do with. And I was so rambunctious. So she put me in every sport. She put me in every dance. She begged the artistic director of Big Four at Playhouse Children's Theater to let this young person in, even though I was too young for it. And after like a year, he was like, yes, okay, I will. And I just found it. But I find that not just like theatrical dance, like not just musical theater, not just all of these like contemporary, very much on stage dances, everything is transformative and everything has a story, and really connecting with the music, with yourself, with how you want to express yourself in that given moment, how you connect with the people around you is more important than like what you're actually doing. And so I find that with theater, you just have that medium to then connect with the people around you. And by using that medium, it's more of a direct form, I'd say, even if it's totally fictional, your experience still comes, it's still your experience, it's still your opinions, but it's just a direct, more streamlined approach, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome. Coming from places of truth, I just love all of that. What excites you about theater these days? I mean, is it like, is there something about, and the reason I'm asking this question is because, we went through a period, Strawdog certainly went through a period of this, I went through a period of this, like, like everybody else, of like when the pandemic hit, there was like, oh, we're going to introspect now. Can I use that word in that way? And we did. I mean, we took a long and hard look, and there was a lot of grappling that was going on, and it was absolutely necessary, and we should do that again, and hopefully not have to wait for a pandemic to take the time and space to make that kind of thing happen. But I don't know, it just feels like it's been a couple of years now where, things are potentially, moving back. What are we joyful about in, the theater? Just in general, and not where we are, but like, what are we loving for the first time, or loving again about this thing that we like to do? Jeremy, you mentioned in our green room, as it were, that we were, theaters, you're exploring theater in various forms. That seems exciting to me.
It is, and I think that's something that's really exciting to me broadly right now, that we're seeing a lot of our industry open up the idea of not only what is theater, and looking at works happening in the genres that we understand, plays, dance, music, dance, things like this, but also looking more at multidisciplinary work as being the norm, rather than it being kind of fringe or sideline. And that's something that's really exciting as an artist who wears multiple hats, who can sometimes get flummoxed around, like, which box do I check? Am I a dance artist? Am I a theater artist? And it's so seeing this broadening of within our field of accepting kind of what artists have always been doing. It's kind of letting go of this corporatizing of our art form, and really letting expression lead. And also listening to audiences. What do audiences want to see, and how do they engage with the work? And something I'm seeing change, and something I'm really, really excited about seeing, is finally our theater profession addressing racial equity in meaningful ways, and not in easy ways. And we haven't seen a lot of really great solutions yet, but it's really great to see that it's finally being addressed and talked about. And it's really exciting to see some new models emerge that are reflecting racial equity, such as shared leadership models, when there's now more than 2 artistic directors at the helm, 2 and 3, when we're looking at collective leadership, when we're looking at community organizing as a mode of operations. Those are some things I'm just really excited about, that I had really pulled away from the professional kind of regional theater market for a while, right before the pandemic, because I had just become so burned out on it. And so I'm actually joyfully returning because of this kind of shift in perspective, and that the fact that I do dance theater, I don't always have to explain what that is anymore, that it's not, it's like, oh yeah, that's great. Or that the more people are understanding what devised work is, and how communities can really co-create and have real authentic voice and what goes on stage at various stages of development. So then we have audiences built into our work. We're not suddenly trying to sell tickets to something that our communities don't feel like they're a part of.
Mm-hmm.
I love that you've like brought up audience like multiple times right now, because I do feel like there for a while, maybe it's just, I don't know, maybe this is probably not universal, but I feel like sometimes some artists, myself, I've certainly done this, where I'm just like, the play is the thing, and the space is the thing, and the author is the thing, and darn it, why don't these audiences come and love it? Where are you? Why are you not in this spot, loving this thing that we're doing. And like, you know, I mean, I think I love it that you're saying, you know, sort of was occurring, you know, that like bringing people back and making them like, there are three things. No, I think you were sort of getting to this earlier. Like, there are three things you need for theater. We all heard about this in Theater 101. You know, something to perform, someone to perform it, someone to perform to, and sometimes I think the audience, the perform to, gets a little bit lost. So I'm excited to hear that you're excited about the thing that you're observing is the reintegration of the audience back into the theater. Who else?
I do think we have huge change with the way we used to do things. The regional theater model, I can't tell you how many essays and panic publications I have read saying, you know, knelling the death of theater or begging for a bailout or, you know, decrying this decrease in its change. It's not that I don't wish there was money flowing through those systems. I would love for money to flow through all the theaters all the time. But I also had a little bit of like, boo-hoo, try Chicago Storefront. We do everything on a shoestring all the time. Come join us. We're still playing. Right. And, you know, some of the discoveries and or that I've made for myself was, you know, having to readdress the assumption of the journey that I was going to make. I thought, you know, okay, 5-6 years and I will do my Chicago Storefront and then I'm going to join Equity and then I'm going to get an agent and then I'm going to be in my Dick Wolf procedural and then I'll join SAG-AFTRA after I get Taft-Hartley lead. And then, you know, I'll try to start getting into the regional stuff, you know, like that's, you know, how you go from the minor leagues to the major leagues in Chicago.
Yeah.
And guess what? I never got my Dick Wolf procedural. Never happened.
But there are so
And
many
I
of
have
them.
I've never joined any of the unions. And I, you know, who knows? I still may. I love unions, would love unions to protect me and, you know, defend my rights. But meanwhile, I have done work that I love with people that I love for audiences that I am so excited to engage with. And I've gotten a lot better in my later years about knowing, oh, that project's not for me. And, oh yeah, I don't need to do that. So, you know, finally getting continually cycle of getting rid of the scarcity mindset of I've got to take this. I've got to take this. I've got to go after this, you know, and instead of asking, do I want this project? Why do I want this project? What will this do for me? Because honestly, the money is usually not there. I've had a couple of projects that, you know, have been amazingly helpful, but lucrative, but most of the time it's not. And of course, there are many, many industry and capitalist voices that say, oh, you should be doing it because you love it. You should be giving everything of yourself. If you don't love this, you don't win, right? And all kinds of things of like, oh, you get the exposure, blah, blah, blah. Yes, a lot of us do this because we love it. So as we continue our journey, figuring out what sustains us, what do we love? Why take a project or be part of a project? And the better we get at articulating that, the better community members we become.
It's interesting to think that, you know, the ideal of going, because I had this mindset too. I had the plan. I had your plan in place. I was going to do that as well. But it's interesting to think that, like, you know, how many things are on various streaming services that, or sorry, how many of those kinds of things are available in Chicago? I don't know however many there are, like, let's say there are 50 projects or whatever. How many theater companies are actively producing at any given time in the non-equity space? It's something like 100 or 150 at any given moment. There's more of that happening than there is of, you know, the ideal. It's just an interesting thing to think about. And something I've said this before, I learn something new every time I host one of these, and that thought just occurred to me. I might hate it tomorrow, but it's just interesting to think about tonight. I don't know, Noah, Heather Grace?
I wanted to latch onto the idea of burnout. Every time, and Kat, also what you were just, you know, saying about what you had imagined your path would be, your professional path, and which is just so awesome because when I went through the Second City Conservatory, I thought I'm gonna do this program. I thought there's no effing way I'm going back to school. I'm going to do this program. I'm going to audition for the touring company. I'm going to get in, obviously. I'm going to then audition for Second City ETC, sort of like the JV stage. And of course, I'm going to get hired. And then, of course, they'll see my inherent potential and move me up to the main stage. And then I'll be on Saturday Night Live. And then I'll make movies and then I'll retire. And every one of those sorts of plans I've made, and I've made, half a dozen over the course of my entire life. And spoiler alert, I'm going to talk a little bit about how much I'm enjoying getting older. The perspective is delicious in terms of I have such perspective on all the stupid things that I've done in my life, but also the wisdom to celebrate those times I had the courage to completely change my life. Because existentially speaking, I have no idea what comes after this. As far as I know, it's this and that's it. I don't necessarily believe that, but that is the only hard evidence that I have.
The facts that you have right now.
That's right. And so, when I start to think about, well, I'm going to achieve this and I'm going to be in this union and I'm going to do that. And, I'm going to make my living as an actor and I'll tour all over the place. And, oh, well, here's this woman, you're going to meet her and you're going to fall in love with her and you guys are going to get married. And she probably doesn't want to go on the road with you because she's pretty accomplished and she has her own career. And so we're going to move to Green Bay, Wisconsin, and you're going to use that master's degree that you're $138,000 in debt, with to teach adjunct or as a visiting assistant professor at this stupid little, I'm sorry, it's not a stupid little college. It's a small, wonderful liberal arts college here in the Green Bay area, and also at UW Green Bay. And I'm thinking, okay, well, now I'm going to be an academic. This is great. I'm going to be an academic. A position is going to open up. They're going to see my inherent value. They're going to hire me. I'm going to get tenure. I'm going to become the department chair, and then I'm going to retire, and I'll have a lovely government pension to just do whatever the heck I want in my old age. And
royalties for all the publications.
That's right. And I'll act professionally in my spare time. Well, you know what? That went bust, quite frankly. There aren't any other teaching jobs here. I'm not even sure I would want to do that job anymore. I don't have a lot of patience for the students of today, if I'm being perfectly honest. And I feel bad saying that because I like sharing knowledge and all that stuff. Anyway, that's another story. Let me get to my point. My point is that I got to this point where there are no teaching jobs, and if I want to act in Wisconsin, I'm going to have to develop relationships with a whole bunch of other theater companies, and it took me years to do it in Chicago, and I don't have the energy for that anymore. So what am I going to do? And this is my midlife crisis. What am I going to do? I'm not good at many things, and so here it is. Whenever I get to a point of burnout, my pattern repeats itself over and over and over again. I sit there and I think, well, I don't like what I'm doing, or it's not satisfying in some way. What else can I do? And I just do something. It doesn't even, it's like I'm throwing a dart at the wall. So for instance, I was a little burned out in 2015 and I was directionless. And I have this Nikon DSLR camera that I got a long time ago because it shot 1080p video, which I've never shot a video with it. And I thought, well, let's just use this thing as it actually is intended to be used, as a camera. And my roommate was a photographer, and I knew this other photographer who's a good friend. And I decided I wanted to start at Canal and Milwaukee Avenue and shoot Milwaukee Avenue all the way to where it ends in Chicago, which is at Devon. Because it's a really interesting street, like it's super multicultural and a lot of history on that street. That act, I didn't become a professional photographer, but it gave me a leg up to do something else. So
it was transformational.
This is the transformation. This time around, I met a hip hop artist who lives here in Green Bay, he's also a poet, hosts a bunch of open mics. He's also an activist and he's an educator, and I'm really interested in this guy. And so I approached him and I said, I want to make something with you. And he said, what do you mean? I said, I want to make a piece of theater with you. Jeremy, this is the interdisciplinary part of this. And he's like, well, I don't know anything about theater. I was like, you don't have to know anything about theater. I know about theater. What I don't know about is poetry and hip hop. And so I would love to be exposed to that while we both, in our activist roles, make a piece of poetic theater that does something for the community. What that is, I don't know. Let's get some coffee and talk about it. So we got
I
some
would say
coffee. We
it feels like
talked
hip
about
hop
it.
is
Sorry, what'd you say?
theatrical. I'm sorry, just I'm like I feel like hip hop is theatrical, sort of innately.
It all is. It all is. Poetry, hip hop, it is all, it's all storytelling, theater. So here's, I swear this is the end of the story. So he agreed and we got coffee and what it came down to is we decided we wanted to make a piece of theater about invisibility, cultural invisibility. You've got, communities, the Black community, the Hispanic community, the physically challenged, or I don't know what the correct nomenclature is now, to how to say that. But you understand what I'm saying, like the indigenous community and how they feel a sense of invisibility in the face of white Christian nationalists. And what that turned into, we heard a story about a homeless encampment in Green Bay that got broken up by the police, and the police brought a garbage truck and they threw everybody's stuff away. And we were aghast for two reasons. One, we had no idea there were homeless encampments in Green Bay. That came as a surprise to me. It's not like I thought there weren't any homeless people, but we didn't realize the extent of the problem. So our piece has become about perception and invisibility. And that invisibility is something people feel, but it's also something that we do to other people. So we're making a piece of theater, myself, my friend Cujo, and three other poets, and sort of bringing in other artists, for projections and other things at a local theater that's right smack dab in the area of concern in Green Bay. And we got a grant to do it, and I feel like, yeah, you know what? All the stuff that I went through all this time, all these years, the sweat, the blood, the tears. Oh my God, the tears. The hopelessness, the helplessness, the recovering, the cheers, I'm sorry. I know this isn't a blue show, but this is the way this has to be said. Living the fuck out of life.
Well, look at as for just hearing you tell this story. I mean, and you said earlier that you're moving into something else, your midlife crisis. I feel like theater is solidly in in scope for you, though.
It is mental health,
yeah.
social work, theater. It's all the same. It's all together, and I feel very excited about it. That's
awesome. Awesome. Heather Grace, I want to give you a chance to pop in here because we're starting to come up on not.
That's my fault. That's my fault. I'm
You're
sorry.
fine.
I was long-winded.
There's no judgment here. I'm just really, what I'm interested in is like you've been here for 2 years, Heather Grace, in the theater, and like sort of like the rest of us are talking about, well, when I was, so I'm like, what's the fresh perspective? What is the I've only been here 2 years perspective, kind of like what excites you about theater, that kind of thing.
Honestly, kind of the same. Like, like y'all are talking about like, this is what I thought my path was, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, I'm in it. I'm smack dab trying to figure it out. But something that I like, all of the interdisciplinary theaters, shows, all of the activism that can be done through theater, everything. I love anything with audience interaction and audience participation. So anything that is, oh my God, words escape me as soon as they try to come out of my mouth.
You mean like the immersive kind of stuff, or just stuff where the audience
Thank you
feels-
so much. I was like, what is the word? Immersive theater. But also when I was younger, I mean, I feel like part of it's society. Part of it is all of the old theater makers being like, hey, this is how it's done. This is what theater is. You do all this training, you go to school, you get your degree, you go on tour, you go on Broadway, and if you don't do that, you're a failure. That's what we're told. And I find that so many people my age are like, no, fuck that. Like, that's not how it has to be. And I also thought when I was like a senior in high school, I forget her name, but someone on Broadway was like, actually, I'm not getting these roles. I'm going to make my own work. I'm going to do my own thing. And I heard that and I was like, oh, she's a failure because she didn't succeed in the way that she's supposed to. And now that I'm like older, I'm like, oh, that's silly. Because also what you do is you make your own work, you make what's important to you. I find it so awesome that I'm seeing these audition notices and I'm like, oh, my friend just started that company. Oh my gosh, I am meeting these people. I'm like, oh, that's your audition notice. Oh my gosh, you're doing this reading, like you and all these other people. All of these things are by people our age, my age. And just want to create work and do our own thing and not waiting for permission, but we're taking it into our own hands. And like, it doesn't matter if you have the money or don't have the money. Like, I have a friend who's writing a script and she's part of a company and they're like, great. So we just did this reading of this first draft. Wanna put it up in September? And she's like, okay, yeah, I do. And we were all talking about it. And she's like, we can't pay actors. Maybe if we can pay actors, it'll be like $20. But it's like, we want to do it because we want to create it. Like, it's hard, but it's all a bunch of us coming together and being, being creative because we are creatives. And so that's something. So like a combination of what you're all saying, except I'm like in the heart of it, figuring it out on the fly.
Thank goodness.
Is this, yeah.
I feel very well represented.
So, sorry, is this something you are doing in September? Is coming up in September? Is that?
Not me, my friend.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
God willing, I'll be part of it.
Yeah, yeah. That's amazing. That's amazing. You're right. We're creators and makers. And so my partner who's a music director, he's always like, Michael, because whenever I want to take a class, like a theater class, he's like, because I'm like, I want to learn more about theater. And he says, Michael, he's Southern, that's why I'm using a fake accent. Do you want to do it or do you want to learn about it? And I'm like, oh, both?
Yeah, no, that's me. I'm like, I want to do both.
Yeah.
Why do I have to choose?
Yeah.
Exactly. I don't know. I feel like we are sort of like telling the story of journey and transformation and discovery. I don't know. Discovery seems to be happening, to all of us in different ways. We all seem to be sort of at different stages, but we're all experiencing discovery, and I think it's really well, it's not profound, but it is awesome. It's very fun for me to witness, and for other people that are on the screen with me here. So I don't know, your reactions?
And
Yeah.
I think that's life. And art is the stories of life. And again, it's all very universal, but it's all very deeply personal. And so all of us essentially are going through exactly the same thing, it seems like, but also not in the slightest. None of our stories are the same. They're all very repetitive, all very cyclical, but not at all. So I love that. And that's art, and that's theater. We solved it. And cut.
Thank you so much. The Thank You 5 series is officially over. No more. No
You're
need to
welcome.
do this.
Next week, cancer.
That's right. Exactly. Oh my God, I love these so much. Thank you so much, you people. You've been amazing to talk about this. I want to, we have talked about this a little bit, but in the way, in the spirit of being intentional, in our sharing, and we've talked about some of this, but I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about your most memorable moments in theater, like that, like just like we've been talking a little bit, theoretical. So give me your most memorable moments in theater. What's the first thing that comes to your mind? Like, oh my gosh, it was this. And Heather Grace, since you're in the middle of the screen, I'm gonna ask you to go first.
Oh, hard
Good.
pass. Someone
Who would
else.
like to go first? Yeah.
I'll go. I used to be the artistic director of a theater company called Factory, and we were itinerant at the time, and of this particular story, and we were producing a play, a new play called Among the Dead, which was like a comedy, like zombie action play. And we went all out. We did it in the basement of the Chopin Theater, and we took over that entire space and got it really like moss everywhere. And the play took place in like the backwoods of North Carolina in a zombie apocalypse. And we had 30 people come in to be zombies nightly. I think makeup was the biggest expense of that whole show. So all total, on stage at any given time, we could have as many as like almost 50 people. And it was really amazing and a big hit, I'm glad to say. But the memorable moment here is that uh, the theater company was being run by a very small number of people at that time. Me and four other people were doing all of the work. And there was blood all over this place. So we spent a whole day striking, taking apart this set, washing blood out of every fake blood out of every nook and cranny. And when we were done and the truck was loaded and we were about to leave, the five of us sat around and sobbed.
Oh,
But we sobbed for a number of reasons. The number one, because no one helped us. Despite our pleas, no one helped us. But not, theater is so great because it teaches us our limits. It pushes us beyond them. And it also helps us to understand that other people are always, someone's going through what you're going through. You are never alone in the theater. You are resourceful and creative human being. And anytime you feel like that's not true, there's a number of people you can call, write, Snapchat, whatever you do, and say, you know what, I don't feel so good. And they're going to tell you how awesome you are. And that
that's
was one of those moments.
yeah. And that just one of the moments. Who's got another moment that they want to share?
I'll talk about
Yeah.
many years back. Underscore Theater used to do a festival of new musicals.
Oh yeah.
And that particular festival doesn't exist anymore, although I heard Co Candy might have picked it up. So
Yes,
here's
okay,
hoping.
picking it up. It's true.
Can't wait. Can't wait. More new musicals. But I got to be in a musical called Fanatical, ! By Raina Hardy and Matt Board. And it was about a Comic-Con, a fan-run con situation about a very thinly veiled Firefly show. And it was, it was a Chicago theater festival, so scrappy, very low on sets. We had some costumes, we had some props, we had an incredible score. We had a cast that loved each other and were so excited to let our freak flags fly. And it was the second time I ever played an alto lead. I tend to go soprano, and it was where I learned to sing patter. And I was playing the con runner. I had a solo called I'm Gonna Make Sex at You Tonight, where a young reviewer who is probably now in her 20s, but at the time I think she was maybe 11, wrote, she's trying to point out how thin and pretty she is, but really she just looks like a robot. And I was like, I feel so seen. Because that was about my character trying to seduce the Joss Whedon figure and in failing miserably, but yet also somehow succeeding as I sang at him. And it was, the whole run was so joyful. And I love festivals, and I just want people, and I love new work, and I just hope more people come together to do these little scrappy things. And even though I haven't gotten to work with a whole lot of that cast again, a couple of them I have, Rory Leahy, for one, who played the Joss Whedon figure, and Raina Hardy, anyway, my heart bursts with joy thinking of Fanatical and the _ New Musical Theater Festival.
I love that. And like, who says that theater doesn't live on? You're talking about it still. Awesome. Jeremy.
Actually, oh, so sorry.
Sorry, Heather Grace. No, nope. You spoke up. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Speaking of theater living on, mine is Stephen Sondheim. I mean, he's being produced, as he should, by everyone, but like Blank is doing his shows, Theo's doing his shows, the Company and Into the Woods Broadway tours, Paramount just did Into the Woods. So Sondheim's been on my mind, but I find that every time I see one of his shows, specifically Into the Woods, which is my favorite Sondheim, a different thing pops out at me. And I was in that show and I've seen it so many times, but it doesn't matter. At a different stage in my life where I'm at, there's a different nugget that I get. And it's so beautiful that, like, I mean, his work is living on, but also his work is living on inside of all of us. And it doesn't matter what I'm going through, like I'm changing and I'm experiencing so many different things. But I see a show and I'm like, oh, you did it again. I'm like, that's me right now. That's what I needed to hear. And that's just so special.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, Jeremy.
Real quick,
Way to
too.
point it out.
Yeah, an old memory is like from my 20s. I remember seeing Matthew Bourne's Play Without Words at Brooklyn Academy of Music, and that was just my first introduction to dance theater on that scale. This huge opera house, huge full audience, like not pushed to the kind of experimental fringe, and also a play literally without words. It gave me so much freedom to like really explore physical narrative that I felt like informed a lot of my work. And then flash forward about 20 odd years. A few years ago, I was working on the Little Mall project when she visited New York. And if you don't know about that, look it up, Walk with the Mall. And being with that, she did about 50 live events in 3 weeks. I was about at half of them. And watching the audience in the street crowd, just thousands of people just showing up, either they happen to be there or coming to see her, and thousands of people telling her story, listening into the crowd, because again, this is a piece without any words. It's all physical and visual. And so hearing the crowds tell the story of this character, who is she? Why is she here? Why is it important? Why should we care about immigrants? Was just super transformational. So those two are really resonating for me right now, both interesting, both without words.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to share one. As a host, I'm not supposed to do this kind of stuff, but I'm going to do it anyway. There was I know, right? The Moscow Ballet came to Chicago. I think it was Moscow Ballet. They were definitely based in Moscow. And I went with a friend because they had a free ticket and I was, younger and poorer. The whole thing was in Russian. Except for not the whole thing. The spoken parts were in Russian, but then there was this one piece, this one piece within the program where a man and a woman met by coming out of a trap door in the stage. Weird. But then they started doing laundry together, and the relationship that they built from coming out of the trap door and doing laundry and like. And it was very percussive and very what you might consider stereotypically Russian, because they had these big wet towels and they were just going whap, whap, whap onto the stage. So that passion for the cleaning was clearly the passion for something else, which culminated at the end of this piece, and it was just really beautiful. And it shows. And the reason I remembered it, Jeremy, is because while there were words, I understood none of them, but the whole thing made its way through to me somehow. So, yes, exactly. Okay. Sadly, we are almost at time. So We have one last thing that we like to do for our audience, a little gift for their audience and for our audience, and that is each one of our panel members is going to leave you with a recommendation of something you should experience, a book, a play, a movie, or something else that's maybe not currently, but might be one of your next memorable moments. So while you guys think about that, I just have some thank yous that I would like to run through for Thank You 5. The first, of course, thank you, amazing panelists. I cannot tell you how much we appreciate you being here, your dedication to the art form, your willingness to share it in this conversation. Thank you so much. We all really, really appreciate it. Next, I want to say thank you to Kyle Hammond, who you don't see on here. He's the producer of this show. And so thank you, Kyle, for creating this to begin with and having it out there in the world. We're a free theater model show, so our productions are available to anyone. We run our shows on a free theater model, so our productions are available to anyone free of charge. We can only do this by with generous support from our community. So thank you for your support in that way, and thank you for the opportunity to continue doing what we do. I also want to thank, very much so, speaking of support, thank you to Office Hours Global, Edwin Ruiz and Mondo Machine, and for their help in making all of this possible. And our final thank you is to the folks who tune in live or viewing at their leisure at some other time, maybe participating in a chat room somewhere, supporting your show or our shows with your donations and subscriptions. Thank you for helping us to keep this conversation going. And with that, I would now like your recommendations. Who would like to go first?
I'll go first. I have two.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Good.
One is a podcast. It's a mid-Portland night scene podcast. My friends do it in Portland. It is a podcast celebrating Black queer theater artists, which there's not a lot of in Portland, Oregon. So check that out. It's new. It's so wonderful. Lovely perspective. Also, come join the swing community, Traffic Jam Swing. It's honestly the best thing that I've gotten into.
Traffic jams, you said?
Traffic Jam Swing, yes.
Well, I don't know why I write these things down. I could just watch the recording, but I'm writing it down anyway.
You're more
Who's
likely
next?
to remember it if you wrote it down.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes. Kat?
Book would be The Anti-Racist Writing Workshop by Felicia Rose Chavez. Read that before I went back to teaching, and it helped me a lot with how I design my syllabus, and I read it again, and it's a wonderful, wonderful book. Play, I would recommend This Is Modern Art by Idris Goodwin and Kevin Koval. Chicago original. It's fabulous. And the last thing I'll offer is Dale Kingsmill, who is a YouTuber dungeon master, if you're familiar with the game Dungeons and Dragons. She is Australian. She's brilliant. And there's a particular video, I'd really recommend her for anything, but I really recommend this video she did about why we care when our characters die. She breaks down phenomenology from these philosophers like Heisinga and Husserl and Heidegger, right? And explains like why we care about characters and feel like we die when characters die, and why that matters to us so much in story. And whether or not one plays Dungeons and Dragons, I feel like it's so applicable to art and to theater, and highly recommend this YouTuber and her explanation.
Awesome.
Dale Kingsmill.
Dale Kingsmill. Okay.
I'd like to recommend a series of online workshops for theater makers and independent producers through Convergences Theater Collective that I'm co-leading. Our next one is up. It starts in mid-April, called Independent Producing, and we'll get into some hands-on work. We talked about how much independent producing is really swelling up right now, and Convergences has been a collective of independent producers for more than 16 years, and we're sharing our tools and our processes in different ways. About how we can build audiences and build communities to build our work. And that does include a preview of my new book that'll be coming out this fall, The Art of Building Audiences, a guide. Woohoo!
Wow.
Congratulations.
Congrats.
I wish I had that when I started my first theater company.
I wish I had it too, but now it's going to be written down for us all.
Fantastic, fantastic. Okay, Noah.
My first recommendation is a book called Into the Beautiful North by Luis Alberto Urrea, which was adapted into a play by Karen Zacharias. And it's the story of a young Mexican girl who sneaks into the United States after seeing the Magnificent Seven because all the men from her town are gone. They've gone to the United States for work or whatever, and there's no one to protect the village. So it's a really interesting, first of all, it's a super entertaining play. If you ever get your hands on the play itself, it is very interesting and it's insightful in terms of when you think about illegal immigration. The question that not enough people are asking is why are they coming here? Again, spoiler alert, it's not to take your job. It's to survive, essentially. But so that's my first recommendation. My second recommendation is I recommend that you find a genre of book. Mine is international spy thrillers or sort of, detective mystery stuff. Find a genre of book that is total escapism for you. Life is crazy. The world is insane right now, and we all have PTSD. So I recommend you practice self-love and indulge in a little bit of escapism. It's okay. And the third thing, and the final thing is I recommend you consume more art, live art. Go to the theater, go to the symphony, go see some amazing ballet or modern. There's a company of modern dancers in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the Water Street Dance. Oh my God, they're amazing. And every time I consume art, even art that's not theater, my own, I am transformed in one way or another.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. My recommendation to the rest of to our viewing audience is that you come back next week and watch Thank You Five and experience that with us because we can't. We love doing it. We will see you next week with more theater artists. Please submit your questions in advance so that we can ask some of our artists. If you want to join or have a friend, again, go to strawdog.org/thankyou5 page. And finally, thank you, thank you, thank you all for watching. I hope you have a great night.
Bye.